And here we are. We are live streaming.
We are live streaming, even though we can't see it. You may be able to see it. Welcome, welcome. Let me just make sure that I've got this muted. There we are. Welcome to Connection with Spirit. I'm Larissa Russell.
And I'm Deborah Epstein.
We are here with you today.
And I can tell we're going to have bunches of fun.
Yes, every time we get together, we start to talk and it's just like, oh, right. We have to go live. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. And yeah, so we've already started the conversation today. Deb, do you want to jump in and start us off?
Well, I just wanted to welcome everyone here, first of all. And when you're hopping in, when you're seeing this and hopping in, just say hello and where you're from. And yeah, we're going to have a conversation today about valuing ourselves as artists, valuing our art. We kind of are going to go into this really expanded place of, pricing, purchasing when we're consumers, valuing the work of others, not just ourselves. And yeah, that's kind of where we were going with this. And this came about a couple months ago. We were having a conversation about, sometimes when we put an offer out there, we get some email complaints, and sometimes they're not so nice email complaints. And we started talking about the value of our work. And not that I was questioning it so much, but, we were kind of realizing that, each one of us holds a value, I want to say issue, because we kind of are playing through this I'm not enough belief system. And so, yeah, that's kind of, I guess, recapping where we started off with this.
How we got here. We've found that we just have so many topics that it's like, maybe we need a little more of a plan, because otherwise we bounce around. And so whenever we are like, oh, we should talk about that next time, we jot that down. And yeah, as we're both going through a bit of a shift, it was a good time because we, like Deb said, we were talking about it, and it came to mind, the process that we have gone through, but then also new ideas around other places where we may not value ourselves. It might not be money per se, but in how we show up in different spaces when we don't value ourselves. And so, yeah, just talking about that. And Debbie, you had just said before we went live, but talking about it was right there, and I was on the converse, and then it just went. It's like, nope, obviously we're not talking about that one. You had just said, and I was like, that is perfect. We're going to start there. Oh, all right. Yes. So we had, sorry, the way my brain works. We had just said that, just looking at that sort of sense of lack, or that coming from a place of lack. Yes. And how much that influences our whole life in different things, whether it's not using the good china, or not sitting on the, putting the plastic on the couch and not getting it dirty, or wearing it out, or whatever it is. Yeah. And then, Deborah, you made a really good comment. And again, this was before we started, but about the generational trauma, really, because if you think about what would be now our grandparents and great-grandparents, maybe great now, that went through the Depression, it influenced them in a huge way, and that has carried forward. And then you add on top of that, the energy of our world is about having more. We must have more. So we're always in lack because we don't have enough. Yeah. It's just constant. It's constant.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when you look at it from there, it's just a fear-based program, right? That, I could go like, oh, our advertising system, Madison Avenue is playing on, you got to get the new thing, the fear of missing out, get the next best thing, that keeps sales going. But then it also creates a whole nother problem, which is, when you just think about technology and how fast that moves, you buy an iPhone and then months later it's already obsolete because they've got the new tech, although my iPhone is like, I think I have an 8, so I'm like way behind. I think they're on 15 now or something like that.
Yeah.
But you can stretch it, right? So they're getting a little bit better with that. But when I'm remembering back to the 80s and early 90s, when it was like, every time you blinked your eyes, literally there was a new program, there was a new upgrade, there was something, you got to get this new thing or that new thing because they're making them smaller, right? I think about the first tower computer, and it was like a freaking tower, right? In the 90s.
The thing weighed a
and
ton.
Then it's like
It
weighed a ton. Yeah. So it's like we have those sorts of things. And it's right now we're in a time where it's a different kind of I want to say trauma, but like it's a different event that's happening right now with our consumerism, our materialism, and born out of that sense of lack. I didn't know we were going to go in this direction, by the way. Mm-hmm. Born from that sense of lack, that we're trying to fill something within ourselves because we're totally in this devalued state. We don't value, what's inherently valuable about ourselves. And so we're, translating that, focusing like we do, right, on something outside of us. We're putting that value on something outside of us, and it's creating a huge mess on our planet, right? Mm-hmm. And that's I'm getting a little shocked at the bigness of what's coming out of my mouth right now, because I'm like, yeah, that's like
it started with valuing yourself as a creative and healer. That's where we were going with this, but it is it's way bigger than that. Because that value, we value ourselves externally before we value ourselves internally, because that's what we've been taught. Yeah. That's what's been so ingrained in us. And so the consumerism really fits into that. And then if we go into, as a creative or healer, spiritual person, and pricing, well, where do you fit in that? What is the value? And ultimately, it's the value of the person purchasing it, right? So it doesn't matter if it's $10, $100, $1,000, whatever. Is it going to help them? Is it going to help them? Mm-hmm. And so, I think that we get so caught up in valuing ourselves as part of our pricing structure, because of the way our world is with all the external we need external validation that we are worthy and someone is willing to pay for this, and they're willing to pay however many dollars, increases our value. So if somebody is willing to pay $5,000, well, we must be worth more. If somebody is willing to pay $5, well, our value is not very much. But it has nothing to do with that, because it's about how we value ourselves internally that ultimately then turns it around and we express it externally. Mm-hmm. And that's the piece that I feel is missing in this world that we live in this world.
Well, it always comes back to this, right? It always comes back to this, because where we create here is how we create out there. And it is really interesting to me that it's funny. It sounds like almost too easy to go, oh, well, you just work on it in here and then it changes out there. But like, we still don't quite believe it yet, that there's still that programming. That's what we're waiting to get on board. It's constant work. It doesn't mean that the work you're doing right now, it didn't work, or you didn't do it right, or you didn't do enough of it, again, with that lack, right? Mm-hmm. And, it's that it takes time, because we all live in a society that we haven't gotten it yet, so we can't always be the only one, but we can lead in that, and so how do you want that to be? What is the world that you want to live in as far as, value? And what does value look like to you when you're valuing yourself? Like, how do you know when you're valuing yourself? And I'm asking actual questions that I'd love to hear.
Audience.
Because they're thought provoking, right? This situation. It's funny because I was I'm actually, you know, been doing a lot of work on my relationship with this. You know, it's not a sporadic thing. You know, can I say that I value myself? Yeah, I do. I value my time. I value my energy. You know, do I value my money? I have a strange relationship with that.
Mhm.
Because yeah, I have a resistance around it. And, you know, I was raised with that lack. I'm sure a lot of us have, you know, like, oh, we can't afford this. And, you know, the mixed messages of that, I can't afford. When I look back on that, I'm like, wow, my brother played hockey. I, you know, got to do figure skating, which is not cheap stuff, you know, but then certain other things like we can't afford. So that's a mixed message that we get, you know. So it's not that we can't really afford it. We just don't want to channel our resources in that direction right now, you know. So
It's not the
totally,
choice we're making right now.
it's, yeah. So when you talk about it from a place of I'm making a conscious choice of how I'm going to spend these resources, how I'm going to use these resources, you know, because it's foolish just to go spend, right? But then, you know, it's being a good steward of the resources. And I like that word better, the resources we have, because that transcends money, right? Because we start to think, what other resources are there other than financial resources, you know?
Well, just like you were talking about, in the valuing of self comes down to how much energy does it take me? How much time does it take me? How much does it cost me? There's so many different aspects, right? What is it taking away from in, you know, in my real life or the rest of my life? Maybe not the real, it's all real. The rest of my life, that is how, you know, you determine sort of the cost of it. But that still doesn't then equate to how you would price it. It may equate to, am I going to do it or not? Am I going to value it or not? But it doesn't necessarily equate to the cost of it. And it is fascinating. We were watching a show, it's called Snake Oil. I think it's called Snake Oil. And it's all of these really random products. And some of them are fake, and most of them are real. And they have to decide which ones. And watching the thinking process is what I found really fascinating as they're trying to figure it out, because they're looking at, well, how quickly can they manufacture it? How cheap can they do it? How quickly can they get it out there? And I was like, this what it's been reduced to? Our consumerism is just about the dollar, right? And I know I'm segueing a little bit off of value, but as we look at this, it is a component of it, because what do we actually value? It's really the dollar. We've put all of this energy into the dollar that, yes, can buy us things, can give us security and comfort. But it's a piece of paper or a piece of metal, or now you don't even see it. It's some ones and zeros in your bank account, mostly zeros in mine, but you know, zeros in your bank account.
Well, and the zeros in the right place with the one in the right place.
Yeah, that's right. That's all that matters.
Be amazing. The right amount of zeros in the right places.
So like, we don't even have it tangible anymore. Like, money is completely made up. If you think about it, money is completely made up. Somebody at some point decided, well, we need a better barter system. And so instead of like my goat for your chicken, it's like, okay, well, we need to have a structure to that. So it's like, now I'll give you two stones for your chicken, and you know, whatever it was. And so how we look at it with all of this energy of the dollar is the most important. And we've been taught this in our world, right? We've been taught that elevating people to the level of ridiculousness, really, is important. Wasn't it one of the Kardashians that did a GoFundMe to reach the 1 billion? Didn't one of them do that?
Oh, yeah,
And
probably.
people
I
funded
don't
that.
know. Yeah, yeah.
There's literally people starving. That's what we're putting our money into. Okay, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, but
So,
still,
yes,
yeah.
yes, but still, yes.
Yeah.
When we think about how much we value people who make money, how much we value expensive things, doesn't matter if it's worth anything, right? If it's worth
Mhm.
anything, it's mind-boggling to me. And that also then contributes to how we think about money and how we think about the value, and can get really messy in how we value ourselves, because then maybe you're like me and you go the opposite direction and go, well, rich people are assholes. My dad was an asshole. He had money, so rich people are assholes. And, I'm just going to stay as far away from money as possible. Or, this is what money gets you, rocket ships to the moon, or subs to the ocean floor, whatever it is. But that's not what it is. It's what energy we put into it. What is the energy we're putting into it?
Mm-hmm.
And to bring it back to valuing ourselves, we have to separate all of that, because our value is not tied to money.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with the external.
Yeah. And I think a really great practice would be like, if you see that you're doing that, take your energy back from it. Just take call your energy back from that belief system as many times as you see yourself doing it. Oh, I did it again. Bring your energy back to yourself, because we project that out. And then when we become attached to it, we're draining our energy. We're leaking our energy through to that object. And that's a waste of resources right there. It's funny, while you were talking, I was like, I'm really curious. I want to get the definition of value. And I love doing that with words too, because
we do that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I know what it means, but I like to read what they say, so I'm going to do two of the meanings. The regard that something is held to deserve, the importance, worth, or usefulness of something. I like that though, because we talk about the word deserve, which is interesting too. And that, I know for me, that holds, it holds some heat, deserve. Like I always used to hate, like, I'm going to go on a vacation, blah, 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 whatever. You're going to do something. Oh, you really deserve that. And it's funny because it feels like a judgment to me. Like, what if I didn't deserve? What if you didn't think I deserved that? You're gonna like shame me
what if
because
you didn't think I deserved that?
Yeah, yeah.
How I feel about it now.
Oh, you really deserve that. Good for you. You deserve it. That always sat funny with me when people do that. So, definition number 2. A person's principles or standards of behavior, one's judgment of what is important in life. And when you were talking about the cost of something, I kept thinking of, like, how we make our decisions based on money too, whether I can afford this thing or I can't afford this thing. But there's certain things in life for myself that are just non-negotiables, because like if I don't get body work, let's say, and I don't pay for that, I mean, my husband's a body worker. I can get him to treat me. But when I go to my therapist, it's a up-leveled session, and it's worth it to me because I value my health, so it's a non-negotiable. I'm always going to dedicate resources to that. And that's what I value. Right. And so I think for each, it's far be it for me to say to you, like, you really, if you value yourself, this is how you should express it. I think that's where individuality comes in. It's like allowing, like, what do you value about yourself that you're willing, to fund it, resource it. And then what is it costing you? That's the question I was kind of coming to. What is it costing you to not do that? Is it costing you your health? Is it costing you peace of mind? Is it something else? It's like, is it angst? Is it sadness? Is it depression? It's like how we put ourselves on the back burner, right? And that's how that value and the money play out. I can't afford it, and the thing is, there's sometimes just stepping out in faith when you're really like connected with your soul, and your soul is saying like, hey, you got to do this, or spirit saying you got to do this, and surrendering surrendering and letting the fear bubble up.
Mm-hmm.
And that fear of it's a survival thing, right? It's money security, right? Money is, I'm using it for survival, right? If I don't have money, I can't survive. I'm going to be out in the street, I'm going to be whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But it's it's learning how to manage your resources from a place of valuing of the self, right?
And ultimately, we're told this over and over and over again, but getting it is different. And,
yes.
And this is something that getting it is different.
All in practice, right?
Yeah.
Not in theory. You gotta take it from theory and put it into practice.
Where we put our attention is what is going to show up. So if we're sitting in lack, or we're not valuing ourselves, or we think somebody or something is more important, then that is what's going to be given to us. Mm-hmm. We're going to get more of that. Yeah. So anytime, like I think about if you are, low on funds or something, and you're, my bank account's empty, I'm broke, I can't pay my bills, but and you sit in that energy, well, absolutely, that's what's going to happen. But if you're like, oh, this is what my bank account's at, I wonder what I can do differently between now and the end of the month to change that, instead of getting caught in that valuing yourself through it. And then also pointing your attention there. So it's like, it's just a circumstance. The number in your bank account is a circumstance. It's what you do with that, what you think about it, that makes the difference. And that's the science of it, the neural pathways that get repaved, rutted, rewired. It's like, there's a word for this that's not coming to me. Rewired. And yes. And so it's like, how do we rewire those? Well, we have to put our attention there. And whenever we get off track, we have to put our attention there again. Mm-hmm. And it can be really difficult if you don't feel it, right? Yeah. If you don't feel your value, it's really difficult to put your attention to your value. And it's the only way it's going to work. Mm-hmm. So how then do you start to value yourself? Mm. How do you start to value yourself? And I'll put that to you and our audience. Yeah. And EM Luminations, Emerald Moon. Hello, Deborah and Larissa.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yeah, so, glad to have you here.
Out to our audience. How do you then? I know the answer, but it's my answer for me. So, no, I'll tell you in a minute. But what are your thoughts about how if you don't feel it, if you don't feel that value, how do you put your energy into that value?
Much gratitude from Sedona to the Carolinas. Erica. Yeah. I love when you guys pop in and say hello.
Yes, I love that. So please do. And answer the question, how do you find value when you don't feel it?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Deb?
My thoughts, love holds lots of value. When you're loving yourself, I think that's, where that value comes through. I think they're very.
That's the chicken egg, right? We got
exactly.
The chicken egg there. Love value.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's when you love yourself, when you truly love yourself, all aspects of yourself. And, I wanted to kind of throw in there too, that like, when we're focusing our attention on whatever it is you're wanting to manifest, if you start coming from a place of manifesting through love and through value and putting your focus there, you're going to go on a really cool roller coaster ride, because you will have the feelings come up. And when you have those feelings, because I just went through this summer, when I have those feelings of lack come up, it's felt like fear. It's felt like terror sometimes, when you feel like when your safety feels like it's threatened. So the way I worked through that was like, okay, my safety, like, literally is not being threatened. I'm moving through these old paradigms. It's a paradigm shift for myself. I'm being called to a new level of expression of love and value through my life. And because I'm being called to that, I can't still be playing in the darkness of fear and lack, because the two can't operate. You can't operate in that same place. So one has to leave. And so there's a complete surrender. The energy gets to move. You shake it out, you move it out. And I can say, like, my summer was crazy for that. And it did, towards the end of the summer, it started to dissipate a little bit. And then I made some, kind of big decisions for myself, which also were very scary, but I wouldn't have been able to get there if I didn't go through the fear. So it's like fear really, it creates, like, I want to say, fear's a liar, it's false evidence appearing real. And it's like, it's the thing that keeps us small. It's the thing that keeps us stuck. It's not so much the fear itself. It's our believing in the fear, or us trying to keep the fear at bay. I shouldn't be feeling fear when I'm starting to get what I'm asking for. Well, why shouldn't you? Really?
Yeah.
Why shouldn't you?
Literally
Because
hardwired for it.
you're hardwired for it. Yeah. Your body has to shift vibration. So if you're holding on to a lot of fear and you're being asked to step into a situation that you've been asking for, that's going to bring you lots of joy, in order to maintain that, you got to let go of the fear. You got to let go of the fear. And the only way I know of letting go of fear is to let it move through your body and feel it, because when you're feeling it, that's how you know you're moving it. Wow, look at all the
Yes.
Look what happened while I was
it all
talking.
comes back to gratitude, it looks like. Erica, I write a list of 10 things I'm grateful for. EM Luminations, gratitude, and celebrate the wins. Erica, gratitude helps raise my vibrations, which helps me find value, which helps me get out of lack, scarcity, and into love and abundance.
Yeah.
So true. I still do my gratitude journal every night. Yeah.
And the other thing I want to say to what I was talking about too, is we are collectively going through that. We are collectively going through a transformation. So if it's in one, it's in the all. So like, we have wars going on in the planet. It doesn't mean that you're doing stuff to create that war. It's what's going on. What am I battling within me? Where's the war within me? What can I bring peace to within myself? And like, gratitude practices, just amazing for helping with that. And that's the work we're doing collectively. So like, when we talk about values, I'm going to kind of hook it back into value. Like, when you wake up, and I know some of us have jobs where we're working 40 hours and we have this time thing, right? I can't sit and meditate as long as I'd like to, because I have to go to work. Well, if you, even for 5 minutes, even for 5 minutes, get alone with yourself, get, before your day starts, get grounded, get centered, it leaks out to everyone you touch during the day. And that is so important right now. Like, that there's a huge value in how you can shift the planet by your way of being.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. When we did the Healing with Love summit, it's like, if we can just come from that place of love, that radiates out, right? It's expansive. Hate isn't. Hate contracts. We all turn inward. We just right? We don't want any part of it, but yet we might agree with, like, whatever it is. And it just creates division, and we all turn inward, whereas love is expansive. And when we can step into that, it changes the people around us. and allowing. And the fear, just to go back to your point and value, the fear is hardwired into us, right? It's our brain. Its job is to keep us safe. So it's going to do its job. And anything that's new and different is terrifying. Like, it doesn't know the difference between stepping out in front of a car and painting a painting. It's all new. So if it's something new, your brain is going to go, we're going to die. And so that fear steps in, and it's irrational in the fact that it has nothing to do with what's actually happening. It's the brain's job. It's the brain's job to be afraid. And if we can recognize that, and we can allow that fear to sit, like you said, and actually hold that fear and hold space for it and allow it to shift and move through us instead of trying to push it away or ignore it, whatever it is, that just makes it stay there longer. And then the fear just builds up and everything becomes more fear. Whereas if we can just allow, like you said, to just feel it and allow it, it goes very quickly. It goes very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Did you want to mention that?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to add to the brain thing, like we're including the nervous system in that too, the enteric nervous system. It's wired throughout our entire system. You could literally say your body is your mind.
Yes, that's very true.
Your body is your mind. And it's just a little bit deeper than just the brain. I just love to get rid of just dealing with this and like connecting it all. Because we just have this habit of like our bodies are just here to carry our head around, or our big brains around. And our bodies are these beautiful interwoven, interconnected systems upon systems upon systems. It's very fractally organized. That our energetic system is woven into our hardwire like nervous system, and it's a really beautiful it's an elegant system when we think about it. And when we talk about our brain is really the servant to all of that, not the master.
Yeah.
And we've been trained very well that it's all about what you think. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? And like talking about it. And when you move down into the body, then it becomes experiential. When you learn, it's on a felt sense level, right? We start bringing in, like I always use the example of riding a bike, because that's the best example I can think of. That's a felt sense learning. Once your body learns how to balance, you get on that bike and just go. You don't have to think about it, right? In the beginning, you overthink till you go, oh, and then you feel it and you go, oh, that's what they're trying to tell me, right? And how many things in life are like that? Painting is like that, right? We have to paint. And I love how someone put like even 15 minutes. That's how I shifted from my full-time job to like doing what I do now, is like just dedicating myself 15 minutes. That's where I started. I ended up like, seeing how fast I could get ready for work. And so I could have 45 minutes to paint every morning. But it became, it's hard to shift it at first, right? And then you get the feeling of that in your body. And that's how you program yourself. It has to come from here to embodiment.
Yeah. And I think just as you were talking about that, and the words I've been using more recently, and I don't know why, maybe because we needed to have this conversation, but it's the cognitive and non-cognitive, right? So like those thinking parts is the cognitive, and then the non-cognitive is the feeling parts. And so, and the integration, because you do need the balance. Balance is this is another thing I've been working with this week. So balance is like two separate things. This the integration and symbiosis, or where like it shifts.
Yeah, harmony is the word I use. Yeah, harmony and
really good.
balance.
Of the two, nobody is in charge, and nobody, but we need both. We need both at certain times. Sometimes both together. Did you want to comment on the?
Yeah, I just even if they're little wins. For example, when you find 15 minutes to paint with your favorite colors just for you, that's a win. Yes, it is a win. Yeah. And then my fear is like a little child, and I have to parent her, ask her what is wrong, tell it's okay. It doesn't matter if she stuffs up. I will love her anyway, give her unconditional love so she feels safe. Love that embodiment and living in creation, feeling the creative flow. Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful practice too. It's one that I do a lot too, is, running my energy through my system and feeling what's resistant, and then just breathing into that, whatever part is resistant. It could be inner child. I don't, at this point, I'm not labeling it, but just feeling it as a part that just of me that needs a hug that I haven't been in, for maybe a little bit. And so it's just doing everything from that space of love, letting all parts of my body feel and be loved, because that's what it is, right? And the more I practice it, that is a practice, the more I practice, the more I find places that maybe I'm holding tension just habitually, so throughout the day, if I feel like I'm holding tension, there's certain activities that I do that are, positional and postural, where, my body will tense up. And so it's just becoming aware of that. And then, giving it a little hug and breathing into it. And, total agreement with that, given that part of your self-love.
And
yeah.
And the more we do these things, the more we're going to value ourselves. The more the internal becomes important versus the external. And then if we were to bring it back to valuing yourself as a healer, a creative, a spiritual person, when you show up in a business of, these heart-centered businesses, how you value yourself. And I do want to touch on this because I think it's an important point. The energy exchange of money, right? And we started down that road a little bit.
Yeah.
But I wanted to sort of bring it back because money is the currency that we use in this world. And so the energy of money is, there's an exchange of energy when you pay for something, right? Now, what you pay for it is irrelevant. That's something that is negotiated between the two people, the person providing and the person receiving. So it's not the amount. So it's not like, oh, well, it has value. As we were talking about, if it costs more, it has more value. That's how our world thinks, but that's not how it is. So if you were to think about pricing, right, because I'm going to be having this conversation in my community tomorrow. So if you're thinking about pricing services or your paintings, we get very caught in the value of ourselves in that, right? We get caught in how much we value ourselves, and that we attach to what we, how we price things. And I think we do all of us a disservice by this, right? Because we often devalue ourselves or undervalue ourselves because of the world we live in, unless you do a lot of work on it. And even then, I do a lot of work on it, and there's still times. You do a lot of work on it, there's still times. So it's still going to come up. So really, it's like, what is the value of the person who's receiving? What's the transformation? And even if it's a painting or a physical object, what is the transformation they receive from that? Art's a perfect example.
Yeah.
It's so subjective.
Right? It is. And it's really interesting because this is so timely, because I got an email from someone that I follow. She's an influencer, and she was talking about pricing too, and pricing your art for, for example, I can't think of the word I wanted to say, but in particular, pricing your work in particular. And it's funny, she used an example of an orange, because she's like, yes, they're buying your art, but it's beyond your art. It's like, yes, you can buy an orange, but do you buy an orange for the color of its skin and what may be inside? Or do you buy an orange because wow, it's healthy for my body. I love the taste. I love when I bite into a section of orange and the taste bursts forth in my mouth. So it's like getting beyond the material and getting into the experience of the purchase, and like, I think about like the bottle of wine, right? If you buy wine, then I was told this a long time ago too, and it kind of holds true. Like, you really should buy wine that tastes good to you, that you really enjoy. And sometimes it's not the $30 bottle of wine that is the one you should buy, because it doesn't mean that because it's $30, it's going to taste really good. Sometimes that $8 bottle of wine tastes better in your own opinion. It's like, what do you like? It's really, that's what we're told. What do you like? Because get out of the money part of it. It's like, what do you like? Can you enjoy $5 worth of something that maybe someone else is charging $50 for? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's going to be people who are doing the exact same thing or selling the exact same product even, and they're going to have different prices. And they're both going to have customers. They've just valued it differently, and their customers have valued it differently. I remember when my brother was young, so there's a 7-year difference, and I left home at 14, so he was like 7, so he was quite young when I left home. And when he was a teenager, everything had to be brand name, and I was not a brand name person at all. And I found these brand name socks that he wore at this discount store. And I was so excited, like, these $20 socks are like $2, like, yay. He would not wear them. He would not wear them. They were the brand.
Wow.
They were the socks. They were literally
you got them from the discount store.
In the discount store. And I remember that because it just sort of, the value to him was in going to that store, receiving it from that store. Didn't matter, what the brand was, or it was more about the shopping experience, I think.
How he felt.
Yes.
Doing that. Yeah.
And that to me always dumbfounded me.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? There's a question here from Emerald Moon. Did it take you a long time to cultivate that level of self-awareness to come into a space of valuing yourself? I'd love to answer that too, because it's like, well, first I want to, like, what's that level? I want to measure that one. And then it's an ongoing thing. It's not a one and done thing. It's like, how old am I? 59 years.
56 years. And it's still a work in progress, and it's of some things. Right? Other things I'm going to have I'm going to not value myself either. So it's a constant reminder. And really it's about that reminder, right? If we go back to the science of it and rewiring our neural pathways, it is that constant reminder that brings us to the new way, right? Because we've etched a rut. And we have to get out of that rut, and we might get out of that rut. And then a little bit further, we slip back into the rut. And then we have to remind ourselves, and we get out of the rut. And eventually we get out enough times, and it's pushed enough dirt into the rut that we now have created a new rut. That's the new neural pathways being rewired. And so that is sort of the science behind it, but it's a constant reminder. It really is about allowing.
We get to remember too that we're not in a vacuum when we're creating. And I call this creation. I call healing is creation, transformation is everything. How we live our lives is a creation. And so we're not creating in a vacuum. So we're always being influenced. That's why it's so important to get with yourself. It's really important to get with yourself. It is like that 5 minutes, maybe different times during the day. Like if you have a desk job and no one's bothering you for 5 minutes, you can literally just close your eyes and go within and feel, and take some deep breaths and connect, ground yourself, recalibrate. You know, it's
Mhm.
like when you get really practiced at this, like it can be less than 5 minutes, because
Mhm.
it's almost like you're creating that well-worn groove
Mhm.
of, instead of getting stuck in the problem, that you are the solution. You're the only one you need. When you're grounded and centered, you have the universe available to you.
Mhm.
It's like, why wouldn't we
Oh, we
go there
always
first?
do. We
Yeah.
always do. It's just that when we're grounded and centered, we recognize it. We
Yeah.
always have the universe available to us.
Right. But I mean consciously.
Mhm.
I mean
Yes,
consciously, because we do run around like chickens with our heads cut off.
most of
When
the
we're,
time.
yeah, when we forget to come in,
Mhm.
and when we come in, life is such a different experience. It's such a different experience
Mhm.
when you can get in here, and I will say too, like I worked with people in trauma, and I've lived in trauma myself. So I do know that level of disassociation and living, and that to me, that's why I value getting work done. That's why I value this work so much,
Mhm.
because it's literally, I feel, it saved my life.
Mhm.
It's the pathway that I took. And there's many different pathways to heal. Not there's Sometimes we need more than one.
Mhm.
It And think about it too. We're so multidimensional and fractal that one modality isn't going to solve all the problems. It's coming at it from many different angles, and that's why we're never one and done with the work. That's why it takes a lifetime. We're here, we might as well learn, right? We might as well expand through our humanity. That's, we came here to be human, not to escape it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It, it's so true because it really does affect everything we do. Being human affects everything we do. But when we can stop, is where I was going with this. When we can stop for a moment, and sometimes in the beginning, it's even hard to do 5 minutes. I have to say, I couldn't do that for the longest time. But 6 deep breaths. I don't know how long that takes. It's like 45 seconds, maybe a minute. 6 deep breaths, and just allow that, and then you can recenter. Now, it'll probably be gone fairly quickly until you get used to sort of integrating it, but it's a great place to start, right? And then when you can sit for 5 minutes, that was my thing. I couldn't sit still for 5 minutes, but when you can sit for 5 minutes, then it's like, oh, it's amazing. And if you can go longer, even more amazing, right? But I think people, when they think of meditation, well, I know this because I talk to people. When people often think of meditation, they think Buddhist monks. All mind, your mind's completely empty. You can't think of anything. You have to sit perfectly still, and it must be hours, hours. It's like, no, you absolutely can do that. My daughter went to a 10-day retreat where they did that. They sat all
Yeah.
day in meditation, and was like, nope, thanks anyway. Um,
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting too. I'm sorry if I'm jumping in, but
yeah.
I don't know if you saw me go, oh, yeah, I read this in a book one time, and I'm trying to remember if it was a Thich Nhat Hanh or something like that, about the value. And so I loved how it came back to this, right? The value of meditation, right? It makes no difference if you meditate for a minute or 5 hours,
Mm.
5 days, right? It's the same. It's the quality. It's the quality of the connection. It's it's really interesting. It's like, I wish I could remember what book it was. I could see it in my mind, like reading that paragraph, and I was like, oh, that's so interesting. It's like, yeah, right. It's not about the time, because in the universe, well, first of all, we made up time, right? We made it up. And there's a certain timelessness of the void that we enter when we're meditating, and painting can be
Mhm.
very meditative, right?
Yes.
Which, it's like I can start working on a painting and get totally lost in it and go, oh my God, like the whole day just went by. Like the whole
Mhm.
afternoon just went by and it felt like 5 minutes, right? Because
Yeah.
I was so, I dropped into that zone. Sometimes it takes longer to drop into that zone, right? That's, I think what you're talking about with the meditation, because we have this perception of like everything has to empty out. And, but then again, it's like the more you give yourself that 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 6 breaths worth of time, whatever it is, you're training yourself, you're training your body, you're training your mind to I would say get better at it, so it becomes automatic.
Mhm.
Imagine living your life where it's like you're in a constant state of connected, like walking meditation, right? You're not zoned out, right? You're zoned in,
Mhm.
totally zoned in. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It really is. I just wanted to come back to these comments too. And I was thinking the same thing, deep breath. Yes. And it sounds like you both have an amazing high level of self-awareness. I didn't even start to practice self-awareness until 5 years ago, just before I was 40. I
Mhm.
want to talk on that point. And then so happy to see you and Deb and Larissa from Pam.
Oh,
Thank
Pam
you.
G. Pam G.
But to come to the self-awareness, and that's the thing, right? Again, we're not taught to be self-aware. We are not taught to be self-aware because it's not convenient for the structure we have in our world.
Mhm.
If you're self-aware, then you start to think for yourself. And so we don't want to build that into our society. Well, some of us do.
People who think for themselves are dangerous and must be killed.
Exactly. Exactly. So self-awareness is something that you have to move into, and it can take a long time to do that because you often don't even know it's an option to be self-aware, right?
Mhm.
It's like what they say about common sense. Common sense isn't very common. It's because it's not taught for us to think for ourselves, right? We're not taught to think for ourselves.
Yeah, we're taught
And
away from our natural instincts, really.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we can actually start to pay attention to what is happening, that self-awareness,
Mhm.
so many things are going to pop up. And then it gets scary because it's like, whoa, I didn't want to know that. No,
Mhm.
that can't be true. And then so then you're going to back off a little bit. This is very natural, just saying, because we've all done it. Um, anyone who's moved into, and then you step into it and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I do want to know a little more. Oh, and you kind of do this little, I call it the cha-cha of life, back and forth, back and forth. And then it just starts to snowball almost, right?
Mhm.
And then you
Mhm.
just you can't, because you just want to know more. You just want to figure out more. You want to like figure it all out. You want to
Yeah. Yeah.
all the things.
I would say in my experience of my, I'm going way back too. I was always like
Yeah, me
a
too.
deep contemplator, just a deep, like, not so much that I needed to know why, where I was always asking questions, why. Well, first of all, I wouldn't ask a question why, because in my family, it was like not a good thing to ask questions. It's almost like a weakness if you show like you might not know something. So I was just always very quiet and contemplative. That could be something that I came in with too. And I tend to, when I feel very resonant with something, I just, whether good or bad, I go all in on it. I just do. I just have a full on passion for it. And that's just me. And it's not, I want to say that however you approach your life, there is no right or wrong to it. It's your style, it's your way. And I wish we could just blow up right or wrong, but that also comes from our school system. You either get it right or you get it wrong. You got to fall into this mold. And if
Mm-hmm.
you don't fall into this mold, well, then we got to find a diagnosis for you as to why that's not happening. And then we got to get a medication that will get you to get into that pack, right?
Welcome to my world. Yes. Yes.
Damn it.
I just have to laugh because I literally just having this conversation. And I know you and I have talked about this before too, but with all the diagnoses I have, and really, autism, ADHD, before it was depression, before, anxiety, all the things I've been labeled with in my life. And really, we are who we are. The labels come because our system needs to figure us out. They need to know what box to put you in. And there's some of us who don't fit well in a box. We're like the cat, we've got all the limbs out and we're not going in that box for anything. And so there's a few of us that they just keep changing the labels, trying to figure out which box, and none of the boxes fit. That's because the boxes don't fit anybody, really. Just some people are okay with like sitting in the box for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been okay with sitting in the box. I don't understand the box. I don't want to be near the box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
yeah, healthcare,
I take medication until I figure these things out.
Healthcare and insurance and all that kind of stuff, like the way that system is like way too linear. So it's like this linear system for these gorgeous, elegant, fractalized beings that we are, that things that are going haywire in our system cannot be explained with one simple answer or solved with one simple pill or surgery or whatever, because we're way more, I'd say, complex in our design. Not that we're complicated, but we're complex beings, and we're luminous beings as well. And it's like when we start really seeing that about ourselves, it's like that's when we won't take less.
Yeah, absolutely. Every person has value, whether we see it in ourselves or the other person. It doesn't matter. We are a collective. We are individuals. We all have value. And my goal in my life is to let as many people as possible know how much value they have. That is my goal. I'm going to share that with the world. Hopefully, if it resonates with a few, awesome, more, even better. But even if it's just one other person, I can help realize that you have value. You absolutely do.
Yeah. That's interesting. I was thinking about a client I had the other day, and we weren't really talking about value, but it was like the level of abuse that we're willing to accept is directly related and proportionate to the level of abuse that we give ourselves. And so that does kind of go into value, because when we value ourselves, we won't abuse ourselves, right? But then I think conversely too, when you don't care about yourselves, on a certain level, if you don't love yourself, you don't care about yourself, and to the point where you're destroying yourself, where does that leak out into the outer world, how you view the outer world, how you view other people, And I know sometimes we can get caught up in our victim and everything's happening to us, everything. And, these people are mean and nobody gets me. And, that we all know that conversation that happens when we're in our victim. We all have that archetype. We all have that archetype, all of us. It doesn't mean that we have to be victimized. But it's when I'm in my victim, what is the story that I'm telling? And then when I'm so busy being that victim, how does that affect everyone around me? How can I value myself and others when I'm sitting in my victim? And so I don't know what I'd like to do, because I know we're going to be wrapping up really soon. In one of my groups where I had them all last week ask the question as they're walking around in their life without answering the question, who am I? Who am I? Who am I right now? Who am I being right now with this person? And so you start getting a picture of yourself, and we want to stay out of judgment with it. We're just asking the question. You're just getting curious about who am I? Who am I right now? Who am I really? And it's a bigger question. But what I'd like to, suggest or, as a practice maybe is like a different question. Do I value myself right now? What is, if I were to ascribe a value number, what number am I valuing myself at right now? Where, when you see like, oh yeah, I'm valuing myself right now, see where you're not, because I don't think it's as black and white as like, I value myself, I don't value myself. We may I may have areas where I don't hold as much value for
Mhm.
myself as I do in other areas, you know?
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
that's what I'd like to leave everybody with.
Love that. I love that. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. To all of it. I think that's when we were talking about value.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like we are broken, so you don't have value being that way. Yes. It's so true that,
Mm-hmm.
and again, the judgments that come in our world because we don't fit in the box,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we all have value, regardless of whether or not we fit in someone else's box or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That actually, like, that breaks my heart, because I, like, when I see, I mean, where I live, you wouldn't think there's a lot of homeless people. There's a lot of homeless people. And, sometimes just like, if I can't help them directly, sometimes I just pray for them when I'm walking by. It just breaks my heart when we might make a judgment about that person, or those people are being judged, that we have no idea why they are where they are, and, I know personally, I cannot help every single one of them financially, but I can certainly pray for them.
Mhm.
I can certainly pray for them. And that has value. That
Mhm.
has value when you're surrounding somebody in love and light, that maybe they can't do that for themselves right now. They become an attractant for something,
Mhm.
like, see them receiving food that night, see them receiving a place to stay, see them in their highest and best,
See them. Really.
just see them. Yes, see them.
Yeah. I live downtown, and so we have a lot of homeless in our area, and I walk a lot, and I converse with so many people. It's amazing how many people talk to me. I don't think I go out of my way to talk to people, but people talk to me, and
Mm-hmm.
I get into some of the most amazing conversations with people, and a lot of them, yeah, they are homeless. They're
Mm-hmm.
more likely to talk to me than somebody else.
Yeah.
So um, they're just see them. They're
Yeah.
people.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and we are going to wrap up now. I just want to say, yes, I wish I could help people to stand in their power. There are so many people walking around in fear. I think it would be such a different world if people were walking life in their power.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Um,
Start seeing it. Start seeing people empowered, just
yes.
start seeing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I
Practice
love
it.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love that. Any final thoughts? Anything going on in your world?
No, not a lot. I know I'm going to be
That's for
talking to you
another day.
again. Yeah. We're going to be doing something on December 1st, but yeah.
Oh yeah, you're gonna be on our other show. So Creative You Business is the other side of Creative You Healing, and we've started a new show called Aligned Ambitions. And Deborah's going to be hopefully live with me on the 1st. She's going to be with me on the 1st. Whether or not we're live depends on you. If you're watching, go and subscribe to
Subscribe to
Creative
that
You
channel.
Business. We need to get to 50 subscribers before we can go live. So go and subscribe if you're at all interested in listening to Deb and I talk about business and doing it differently. And also on the business side, tomorrow, funny enough, this was planned way in advance, but we are doing a pricing workshop in our free community. So yes, we will be talking about pricing and valuing yourself and valuing your work. And but Deb won't be there. It'll just be me telling you or talking to you, sharing with you.
We just warmed up for that. That's all. I helped you warm up
So
for it.
yeah,
Like doing some
creativeviewbusiness.com.
sit-ups.
But yeah, on the healing side, we will be releasing if you missed any of the Healing with Love Summit, the conversations will be released on YouTube shortly. We're going to release them, I think, 1 or 2 a week until they're all released. And the exercises, the healing exercises will still be inside. You can purchase them, but the conversations we think are just too important and need to be shared. So
Do you have a link that you can drop in there really quick?
I will put it after.
Okay, awesome.
But if you go to Creative You, that's the letter U.ca is the healing side, and then Creative You, the letter U, business.com. Couldn't get the .com on the other side. So yeah, we're working on that. I keep contacting them. They're not even using it. Anyways, that's a whole other thing.
The
Yes,
fire's coming out.
I will drop the links in after this is processed, and so probably in the next half hour or so it'll be there. And yes, thank you for joining us. Thank you for all your comments.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you
Yes,
so
I will get the
much.
link and put it up there. Apologies, I don't come prepared with those things. I'm not good at this, like marketing, remember to do that. No, I want to come and have this amazing conversation. And it's like, oh, right.
Yeah.
I was going to.
Yeah. We need a team. That's what we need. We need a team.
I need a marketing team. I have a team. I need a marketing team. All right. Thank you, everyone. And we will see you in December. We will be here the third Monday, which I forget what Monday that is.
I think it might be the 18th.
I feel like that could be correct. The 18th of December, we will be here. And yeah, we will see